Hello, welcome everybody. Just gonna wait a few moments for the join call the video. Thank you for joining. Just waiting for more people to join us. Excuse the dog. Just gonna give it another minute. Good morning and welcome to the next installment of the Pathway Space. and this one we're going to be focusing on forgiveness. And so, just a little outline. Path A is a growing community for like-minded people looking to nurture self-awareness, freedom, self-expression, love, for more magic, and diving deep, going through this global shift that we're all experiencing right now in this great awakening. And we facilitate this change by offering these different tools. So just quickly, if you would like to be on our mailing list, head to our website, patha.one, pathe.one, and keep updated with our podcast, these events, and meditations. And also, if you'd like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we have a whole lot more coming, rolling out time. And this event is offered on a donation basis, and 25% of the donations will be going to a tribe that Lama worked with a lot in the Venezuelan Amazon. And we will post the PayPal link. Feel like you can donate. Very much appreciated. So this topic on forgiveness is something that we feel is really important and needed in the world today. I think sometimes it can be seen as a weakness to forgive, but I think that truly it takes a lot of strength and courage to be able to do that. And with everything that is coming to the light in the world at the moment, forgiveness is a tool that we can use in order to create the world that we want it to be. And everything that's shifted and changed in the world now, the world isn't going back to the way that it was. And we want to create and envision a world that is more unified, that comes from a place of love. Then we can do that with this whole thing on forgiving. And I've definitely gone through my own experiences of forgiving, and it's really important. So today we're going to explore this topic and what it truly means and how we can do that and how it can lighten us and empower us and help to move forward and create this world with more unity. And really, really happy to be working with these beautiful people. And all of them, we have Lama, Chris, and Annie. And they've all had a lot of training over the numerous years with the shamanic tradition and with indigenous tribes in the Amazon in South America. And so they're just here to share the space and this circle with us. And of course, as well, we had the Equinox this week, so this is our offering through this change of seasons, moment to reflect on everything that's been happening in the world and how we can really implement this thing about forgiving and how it can help not just other people, but it also helps us individually. And so I'm going to open the circle. So if we could just take a few moments, close our eyes, tune into how we're really feeling on a Sunday morning. Feel our breaths. Just take a moment to reflect and what forgiveness means for you. And we're here to journey on this topic so that we can liberate ourselves and each other through forgiving. We are here listening with our hearts open, with our minds open. Yes. Thank you. So I'm going to jump off the screen now and hand it over. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. So yeah, today we're going to start with an opening prayer. The reason that we do this is so that we can open the space in a good way, that we're all able to tune in to the frequency that we're trying to express, which is forgiveness, and to open our mind, body and spirits so the information can come into our hearts in a good way. So if we take time to just meditate, we'll open the space. Thank you, God. Thank you, Creator. Thank you, Divine. Thank you for this life, this breath, all of our senses, the connections for our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers, and for our children. I pray today that we can be in a clean way, that we can communicate with transparency, with fluidity, so we can navigate this journey of forgiveness with love, with compassion, with acceptance. Thank you, Jess, for arranging this meeting. Thank you, Lama. Thank you, Annie. Thank you to myself. Thank you to everyone online tuning in so that we can connect the frequency of love and pass that on to the future generations. Ashkepa Ragachu. Thank you to the elements. Pachamama, Indiyeye, Yakumama, Wariyeye. Thank you for always being with us. Thank you for nourishing the food we eat, for allowing us to breathe the fresh air, for allowing us to connect to the water each and every day, and for the energy of the sun for warming our hearts. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, the topic today that we're discussing is forgiveness, and this is an important journey that we need to take today and in our lives. And I think it's good to start this journey to remember how we was when we was children, to remember how forgiveness was so abundant within our hearts and we was able to do it in a good way. And to be able to forgive, to be able to connect back to that forgiveness is to connect back to our inner child, to remember that state of love, to understand that state of acceptance and compassion that we had for our parents, for our friends, and for everyone that we met. When we was children, when we was upset about something, it was easy to forgive, and it was easy to keep it moving in life. And the older that we got, I feel like the world has conditioned us and made us cold to forgiving, to actually remembering the essence of love in our hearts and how to move forward with that. So to connect that to our inner child is to take that journey of forgiveness, take that journey of love and compassion, acceptance, and to move forward with that. And I think in the changing times that we are in now, where the world is getting colder, unfortunately, before it gets warmer, that we need to connect back to that. It's an important virtue, an important aspect of life we need to return to.
Just follow on from what Chris was sharing about when we're children, and when we do have a better connection with forgiving. And Chris's words, we forgive and we keep things moving. As adults, when we don't forgive, that creates stagnation, and we become stuck in the energy or the emotion of what it is we can't move through, what it is that we actually can't forgive. And we almost match that energy with the same. And that's why there's no movement, there's no progression, there's no space to release ourselves from the traumatic events that have occurred. And through that forgiveness, just like children do, we free ourselves from that burden. We offer that forgiveness, and we can actually keep things moving in that childlike way. So the flow of energy flows in a really good way. So definitely connecting with that inner child, that childlike part of ourselves, allows us to have a better relationship with forgiveness, and allows us to build our energy and transform something that can come in as very negative, very traumatic, into something that can shine light into a situation so that it can transform itself, the energy can transform and move forward.
For me, forgiveness is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. And it starts with the acknowledgement that rage, anger, sadness usually comes from love, and that for that reason we can forgive. So in the sense that our traumas might stem from a place where we might feel that a certain kind of worldly justice wasn't provided, that through remembering that love that gave rise to that situation possibly in the first place, we can use that same transmutational power of love to come to a point of forgiveness as probably one of the most self-directed acts we can perform in life. And through that, come to a point, an integration of unity. As a final step, we must forgive in order to understand that you are me, I am you, and that we are one. And with that comes a really beautiful work.
I think with the process of forgiveness as well, it's important that when we forgive, we're able to really connect to that forgiveness from our hearts. Because it's easy to be in our minds and say we forgive somebody, but if it's not done in a clean way, you leave them microscopic holes open for the anger, for the resentment, for the acidic behavior to then repeat itself. So it's important to be able, if you don't forgive, then be honest with yourself and say, I don't forgive. But if you're willing to forgive from your heart, don't forgive from your mind, and try to connect that place, not just for the other person, but for yourself. Because you can never forgive somebody if you don't truly forgive yourself for the many aspects and many experiences that we have in our life. And that forgiveness doesn't come for immediately just for our friends and our family. That comes for everything on the planet. It comes for the governments. It comes from all the institutions that's conditioned us to be in this way. We need to forgive as a collective, and that's how we unify the energy and we bring the light into the world. And we need more of that right now, you know. So yeah, to really take time to meditate and pray to God and try to understand the relationship of forgiveness that God has for us. God always forgives us. Divine always forgives us. Whatever higher power or entity you believe in will always forgive you. So try to connect to that aspect of how you're forgiven in this world, and then try to sow that seed into yourself to share that onto other people. Um, yeah, it's not an easy thing to forgive. I don't know each person's individual trauma that doesn't allow them to forgive, but I can only speak from my own experience. And forgiveness is not an easy thing to do for other people or for yourself. But when you're able to sit there and try to meditate on what forgiveness actually is, you know, yeah.
It's a big part of why we might get to a point where we find ourselves kind of angry about something, upset about something that might have happened, is that we have these kind of programmed notions of justice, and in that sense, I guess the tapestry of life will show us, without us even really doing anything, that it will show us otherwise. And I think coming away from that programming, there's a higher kind of level of divine cosmic justice that we must kind of reach into. And really that justice is the idea that the justice is within the chaos that exists equally across the world. And in the same way that someone can, wreak havoc, is in the same way that we can release other people from that hell. We have both those capacities. And therefore, reaching into this much kind of broader cosmic notion of justice, it's not something that we reach with our minds, it's something that we can only feel with our hearts. And I think that's where maybe in forgiveness, we think that it's like a positive act that we perform, like telling someone I forgive you, or saying that what they did wasn't what it was. And it's not doing that, it's not negating the act that might have come to pass. It's more reaching into your heart to connect to this like just higher understanding that it's kind of in a way of natural laws. It's not something that we can necessarily put into words, but in our essence, in our deep heart space essence, we feel and know. And just linking it back to what you were saying about our inner child, I guess like that's the energy of children, like they're so, just really connected to that threshold in their way. I guess they're the best teachers, right? Yeah. It's just, I think, making the space in your heart to prepare yourself with clarity, with love, acknowledging that everything that we came with, that we carry, came from a space of love initially to start with, and then to take the cycle back round to love.
I think lockdown for all of us created a lot of space for us to have time with ourselves, for us to sit with the things that we were probably a bit too busy to sit with, beforehand, and many of us went out in nature to connect, to find some peace, some focus in everything that was going on in the world, to find that restorative energy, because there still is a very strong energy of fear and the unknowing of what's going to happen. And all of us, like children, we went back to Mother Earth, we went back to Pachamama. And Pachamama still forgave us, even though we have been so busy and we may not have dedicated ourselves enough to spending time with her. All of the trauma that humanity has caused her body, caused the planet, all of the suffering that our oceans are experiencing, that rainforest is experiencing, that the planet as a whole is experiencing. Pachamama's always suffering, but she still always has forgiveness in her heart. She still always opens her arms and welcomes us in when we're in need, and when we were all lost and a bit anxious and a bit worried about what's happening in the world. And we went back to see her, and she took us in like a parent with a child. She took us in, and she forgave us. And there was no judgment. There was no, oh, but you did this. It was just pure forgiveness and pure love. And that's a great teaching for us that we can utilize to move forward in our lives. That generosity that we're shown every day through Pachamama, through how she was just so giving with the forgiveness. Beyond everything that's happening in the planet, she's still so forgiving and so present. They're great teachings for us to learn within ourselves, and to try and transform our energies through her, through the elements, through our connection with each other and the planet, so that we can develop this space for the children. Because all of this work that we're doing, all of the effort that we're putting into trying to transform this global frequency, we may not see the benefits of it, but it's for our children. It's for their children. It's for the planet. It's for the future. And we have to invest in that process the same way that our parents invested in us, our elders invested in us, so that we could be in this space today. We share a responsibility to see the future come through in a good way for our children. And one of the best ways that we can try to create the energy and the frequency that we want for our children is to start in that place of love in our hearts, and to have that ability to forgive, so that we can move through times that are challenging. Because without that, we remain stuck, and we go around in a circle and nothing moves forward. And the forgiveness has to start with ourselves as well. None of us are perfect. We're all humans. All of us have had things in our past, things that we've done that we might not be happy with, we might not have felt have honoured us very well. And sometimes really embracing that forgiveness for ourselves is a big challenge, and that can keep us stuck in our own trauma. So the first place that you can really start to embrace forgiveness is with yourself, for everything that you've been through, every decision that you've made, every circumstance that you've contributed to that you felt that hasn't been in the most honourable way. Offer yourself that forgiveness so that you can free yourself from it, so that you can move forward, because everyone has a light within them that needs to be shared collectively throughout the world. And the only way we can really start to express that is through forgiving ourselves and removing those chains of us, so that we can move forward.
Just to add, it's like, just to tie into what Annie was saying, on a collective level, and starting with ourselves. And you know how, generally, like in healing self, to say you heal yourself and the other feel. And in terms of like, the current kind of climate that we find ourselves in, you know, I think ideas of us as a collective has been coming up more and more, and we're becoming more aware of our responsibility as a collective. And there's a lot to be said, I think, about cultivating the energy, the pattern of forgiveness within ourselves, and I just feel really sure that that will just, if kind of we all do, I know I'm doing that in the work, and you are, and you are, that starts to tune us into the timeline of love, as opposed to like the current timeline of fear, which is really strong, and which can also be very real to us, especially you know when you tune into the news and what's just used to walk outside, see people wearing masks. But it's an encouragement that while that's happening, there's also this other timeline of love that we can choose to connect into, and it's running simultaneously, and with one key thing, that it's ever more powerful than that timeline of love. But as a precursor, forgiveness is always going to be one of, like we were saying, like one of those, just a major process in our in really looking into that timeline.
I think through like self-forgiveness is like one of the best prayers that we can give ourselves, you know, and one of the best blessings we can give ourselves as well. And like Lama said and Annie said, it's not the blessings that we just give for ourselves, it's the blessings that we give for everybody, and that we give for Pachamama, that we give back to God as well, and that we give back for the life that we have, you know. And in that moment where we're able to forgive, we're able to transform our energy, we're able to move into a space of light. Because when we hold on to trauma and we hold on to stagnation and we hold on to the lack of forgiveness that we don't have for ourselves and we have for others, that can transform itself into dark energy. And when you open up them portals within yourself, it can come in many different ways. You know, if you have a trauma with a partner, whether it be a female or a male, that trauma is not only going to be with that specific individual, but it's going to be with the collective genre that you're experiencing the trauma with. So sometimes we might say we forgive an individual, but we have a trauma with women or men collectively. So it's important to be able to really forgive from at the essence and at the root of what the trauma was, so that doesn't leak into other places, so that the darkness cannot come in and block you from experiencing life in its wholesome, in its wholeness. So yeah, I think there's sometimes it needs to be understanding, especially in the kind of communities when we dive into this self-exploration, for people to understand like how the light and how the dark energy works within people and around people, and the essence of hate and anger, and all these kind of negative virtues that come with not being able to forgive is dark energy, you know. And if you let that sit inside you and build inside you, the darkness is going to have a good foundation to build itself in, you know. But when you transform this energy, you transform it to light, you're able to walk in life in a good way, in a clean way. You're able to see when these emotions and these feelings and this kind of energy is coming in, and you're able to keep it moving, you know.
Often it's the very things that might lead us to stay in a place where we haven't yet started the process of forgiveness are maybe situations that came from where we've just really just had to survive, and maybe where we really didn't necessarily have the tools to, you know, like be able to really exercise our boundaries. And I guess this happens with women a lot, where the reaction won't necessarily happen at the time that the fact has taken place, and because at that very moment you didn't necessarily have the tools to put your boundaries in place with compassion, but also with the firmness that sometimes you require to for clear communication and just as a way of protection and peace. And I think that to forgive also in some way come to a point of compassion and providing yourself with those tools and that clarity around what your boundaries are. And in that way, you move from a place where now you're in a situation, the cycles have, maybe another cycle is about to kick in, but you're able to deal with it compassionately, but firmly at the same time. And so you move from this space of survival to, okay, that survival instinct doesn't have to kick in, so those traumas can just be released very smoothly, like as and when, or they don't even get to the point where they crystallize as traumas. And I guess it comes down to the decision that, we're not just here to survive. So being clear on that, like from the outset, you wake up in the morning and you just know you're not just here to survive, you really take on an embodied life. And with that comes, this commitment to thriving. And so, like, it's not just about mattering in that sense. It's about everything beyond that and connecting to our higher selves in that sense.
I think for me, what helps me when I find myself in a situation where I felt something was done wrong, or if I felt wronged in any way, is to really start in that place of compassion and observe the person and look at the person. And none of us being causing harm or causing hurt to somebody isn't a natural response when we're children. Causing harm and hurting people is something that we contamination that comes in through our lives as we grow, and having that understanding of the person or the perpetrator who we perceive has caused hurt or harm to us, and really understanding the trauma within them and the traumas in their life, and almost having a prayer for them so that they can free themselves from the contamination that's holding them in their life. That makes the forgiveness come even more, because none of us naturally want to cause harm. It's not a normal state for us. I think Nelson Mandela said something similar, in the sense of it's not a normal state to be in hate. It's natural for us to be in a state of love. And when I was growing up, when he was imprisoned and when he was being released, it was very big as I was developing and growing. And when he was released from prison, Nelson Mandela didn't want any repercussions. He didn't want any retaliation. He just wanted reconciliation. And for me, as a young woman growing up, to see this man who'd been in prison for 27 years and he had been tortured, and to have that space where he could be in his heart and say, no, I want reconciliation, he wanted peace. It was a great teaching to me about forgiveness. And I think all of us will probably have friends and family who are around us, who we observe, who have been through really difficult times, and they seem to flow with such ease through them. And that's because they've really mastered their relationship with forgiveness. They don't allow negatives or bad situations to dictate how their life is going to move forward. They choose in that moment to free themselves from that trauma so that they can develop and grow and flourish in their light. So it's not only a blessing and a prayer to the person who we're offering the forgiveness to, but it's a blessing to ourselves, because we're allowing ourselves to transform our energy, we're allowing ourselves to develop and build, and we're allowing ourselves to move forward in a way where we can really start to connect to that purpose of why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing here, So for me, that understanding of the person in front of you, look past the wrongdoing, look past what you perceive as negative, or look past the bad situation, because there's always love behind it. There's always goodness behind it. But we're so conditioned to see the bad first. And very rarely do we dig deep enough or look far enough to find that goodness behind all of the trauma that's surrounding it.
Yeah, I think in the condition of the world at the moment, we're too quick to look at people in the intellectual way, so in the way of the mind. But when we connect with people, we need to connect in the heart space, and we need to know that that most humans have a good heart, or most of the people that I know have good hearts. But usually it's the energy behind them, or something, or a trauma that's driving them to behave in a certain way. And for me, it's a great way to transform how I view somebody, is to be able to see them for their hearts, and then everything else is just behind them. As Annie said, and I think that's an important way to take that into your life every day and try to transform the energy of like a lack of forgiveness, and move into that space of compassion and love and forgiveness and acceptance and all these good virtues that we're going to need to create a better planet for ourselves and for the children, and we need to start disconnecting from ourselves, and start to think about the future. What seeds do we want to sow? What seeds of light do we want to sow for the children? How do we want the planet to look in 100 years, 200 years? Because this is not about us. It's always about the future generation. It's always about God. It's always about divine. And it's always about how the planet can be in the light. So yeah, that's the way I kind of try to transform forgiveness on a day-to-day basis, because we're going to be touched and affected by things every day. The way the lockdown is, the coronas come in, and all these things are going to touch us, things are going to upset us, things are going to anger us, and none of us are perfect. We all feel these aspects, but it's how we can take them aspects and transform them into the light and move forward in a good way and in a clean way, in our mind, body, and spirit. Not just in our mind, not just in our body, but in the wholeness of how we are as people and as humans.
I think with that comes, and you said it as well, Annie, like connecting to our purpose, that we all come here with a purpose. We all come here with a sacred contract that's been assigned to us before we even come into this plane, and acknowledging that our one or two relationships are not the totality of our existence, and that what it really is that these relationships and these points in our timeline come to bring us closer to our sacred contracts, to honouring our sacred contracts, to completing on them, and that really that is an inner work that really kind of just, it's a preparedness to receive that grace from Great Spirit, from connection to Creator. Like that's my starting point really for transmutation, is to really just ask for the grace to carry that work out in my life, and then from there work through it, so that when as inevitably will happen when trauma has taken place, and we have this tendency to just loop it through our minds and re-experience that trauma every time, and it's a readiness for not necessarily like we were saying earlier, not necessarily saying, oh okay, I forgive you, but it's a readiness for when that trauma, that memory peeks its head again, that we will have that grace already there, invited from the inner work that we cultivate, to treat that memory with grace and compassion, to invite that pain to come and sit with us for, it will come as the feeling, and the old patterns where you'll perceive it as if it's just happened, but with that by inviting it to sit with us, we'll get to a point we can get to a point of understanding and really ask to understand what it was that it came to teach us, and then from that place of understanding, come to a place of like reconciliation and just laying to rest, or either laying to rest or using that spark that comes from anger to really create something beautiful, and that's the power of alchemy. There, with that's our power, that's our higher selves, that's what we're all capable of, and what we carry within us in our essence.
I think that's a really nice way of kind of demonstrating how you transform the energy system. Situations that occur that are challenging, you go into it one version of yourself, and you can come out of it a more developed, a more evolved, a stronger version of yourself through the lessons that you gain from it. If you have that ability to see that there is a lesson there to be learned, and there is treasure, there's a jewel there to take away from that trauma, from that hard situation, and that encompasses how you transform the energy. You transform it from this place where it's negative to I'm going to use this to build myself. I'm going to use this experience to help others. I'm going to use this experience to transform my life. There's always something that you take away from every challenge that helps us to build ourselves in a really good way. But we have a choice in those moments, and it's important for us to acknowledge that there is a choice there. And when we choose not to forgive, that's a choice that we've made. But that energy is stagnant, and we become stuck. But when we choose forgiveness, the energy keeps moving, because we start to evolve, we start to change, we start to grow, we start to build ourselves in the light in a really, really good way. So yes, I think that's a really, really important to really identify how you change, you transform. That's how the energy changes, through the lessons, through the teachings and stuff.
Can I ask a question? Or if you have any insights on, because I feel like sometimes people hold a lot of anger and resentment, and especially now, I feel like there's so much cancel culture happening. What are your thoughts on that, and being able to understand and transform that energy, like with society at large in general? What's been arising?
It's the essence of what Lama was talking about and what Annie was talking about just now, and I think it's being able to be outside of a situation and see it, not be so consumed by what's going on, and be outside of it and actually try to take what's happening, take the anger, take the hate, take all of that and transform it into clarity and transform it into wisdom. And then when you're able to do the transformation with that, you're able to take that into your life. You're able to be an example for other people around you. And even when you forgive somebody and it comes from your heart, you become an example for that person. You become the wisdom and the clarity for that person to then pass that seed on to that person, so they can pass it on to other people. So I think in society we need more to be not so consumed about what's going on, but take a step back, and we all have busy lives, we're all rushing about, and the kind of Western condition is that we're always fast paced, but try to take that time to meditate sometimes, and meditate on what's happening on the planet, what's happening in your mind, what's happening in your body, what's happening in your spirit, and how these interactions are playing with your mind, body and spirit, and try to draw some wisdom and some clarity, so then you can move forward in a good way. And none of us are perfect. We've all said that. None of us are. I'm definitely not perfect, but it's, how we can take that moment to feel compassion, to feel love in our hearts, and to meditate. That's one thing we're missing big in kind of Western culture, is to meditate and take the time to just feel compassion, feel love. Oh, how's the other person feeling? How's the other person's mind, body and spirit? How has their day been? How's my day been? These are the small little aspects that big to the clarity and to draw the wisdom out of the situation. So I think you can take that with people, you can take that with situations on the planet. It all works in the same way, to kind of analyze the mind, bodies and spirit of what's actually happening in front of you.
I think also like a big part of it is sometimes not knowing what to do with our rage. And sometimes looking away rage because of that not knowing, and just in the same vein of what I was saying about inviting your pain to come and sit with you, inviting the rage to come and sit with you, and learning even that that even within the compassion that you might meet it with, that there's also a chaos within compassion, and to just really, really kind of sit there for your life. When I say life, like I mean for your life, I mean for all life, to kind of just make that decision where that rage either burns until all that's left is ashes, or until you have this shiny gold nugget, whatever shiny thing it is that you like, that you're left with. And I think again that comes from deciding that the part of your ego where it served its purpose for your survival, that is not what you use in order to connect to that higher notion of forgiveness, of cosmic justice. That what we know here in this kind of earth plane is right and wrong, and my God is more right than your God, and if my God is right, then and I've been wronged, then you must be wrong. And that's not to to create more illusion, that's not to say that injustices have not happened, but it's about really choosing where do you want your life to go? What is your greater purpose? What is your service? Guys are saying, the children, our ancestors, and bringing all of that together and just breathing through it, doing the work, going to the mountain, brushing past the trees, removing the illusions, thanking the illusions for the soul lessons, and then sitting on the mountain and calling on our inner healers, and calling and having that healing done, receiving that healing, and coming back and using it to give back to society, to our brothers and sisters, and all our relations, the earth.
Yeah, I think those emotions, when we hold a lot of emotions in, we keep them in so tight, we respond in an emotional way. And I myself, when I respond in an emotional way, be it anger or upset, I never express myself in the most authentic way that I want to express myself. And I'm never as productive as I can be in that moment, because I'm being driven by my emotions. And if we can almost step aside from our emotions and create some space so that we can actually hear from the divine, because when all these emotions are coming in, they're creating too much noise, and they're blocking us off from that connection that we have with the divine, with the planet, to truly have the information that we need to come in, that's going to help the planet, that's going to help move forward, that's going to help us to be productive. When we're completely consumed with our emotions, it's like we've got earmuffs on, we can't hear anything, our hearts are blocked off, nothing can come in. But if we can allow ourselves the space so that we're not navigating our lives through an emotional response, we stop becoming reactive to everything, and we start being a bit more proactive, and we start taking in the wisdom from the divine. It starts to flow in with ease, and we start to have that divine intervention where we think, oh, things will just come in. I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and create this. And we start to build in a good way moving forward. And just recognizing that we do have a choice with our emotions. I have in the past felt where I've been angry with something, and I felt I'm just sitting with this. I'm just holding this. And that's a choice. And I'm holding on to it. And the same way I'm holding on to it, I can choose, don't want to hold it anymore. I'm just going to put that away now and be done with it, so that I can release myself from all this baggage, and so that I can free myself, and so that I can feel my authentic self and feel my essence, and so that I can hear from the divine, because I can't hear from the divine when I'm just so tight with anger or frustration or upset or I was wronged, or I can't hear from anybody. You can't even sometimes hear from your closest loved ones when you're in that so much rage. You don't even create the space for a loved one to say, this would be really good, or I feel this, because you're just so, you completely shut yourself down energetically. Just really identifying that you have a choice when, with every emotion, to not sit with that emotion, to not sit with it indefinitely, and we have a choice to not navigate our lives emotionally, to choose to navigate our lives with a higher purpose, with a higher connection, so that we can start to create in a good way, so that we can start to really help and contribute to a change and a transformation in the energy that is existing in this planet.
Yeah, I just want to say as well what Lama mentioned about it's not to say that injustices don't happen, right? Because I think sometimes there's like a perception that when you forgive, you're like accepting that behavior. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean,
yeah, and it's actually
it's really, it's more, I think, perspective, or that it's simply not the case. It's that like forgiveness doesn't have like a set, like prescription, like this is how you forgive. It's not that. It's a creative process, and within that lie all these like brilliant like sparks, and it's a recognition that that rage that we carry really has not many places where that rage should be directed to at all. And if we think, like, say, in the context of our families, how, if you're carrying a lot of rage, how it can really hurt people. But there are places where it can go, and in the sense that of transmutation, it's taking that rage and like kind of recognizing the master that might exist within that rage, and so like learning even from it doesn't necessarily have to be a passive process, because it's an extremely creative one, and from there you can decide how your forgiveness is going to look. Your forgiveness might be okay, straight out, I've or not, it's something that you say. It might just be a feeling of total kind of you just might not feel that same anger that you do anymore, but it doesn't necessarily even entail a conversation with the subject, and then it could go from never again, or next time if this happens again, this is how I'm gonna like you can start putting in your boundaries with play around with it basically, until you come up with a formula where ultimately you just don't carry those mental patterns that suffering that comes when your soul is really trapped in a trauma. You free yourself from that so that you can use that energy for what it's really here for life, but until then it stays stuck in a place where it's just stuck, and there's like a soul retrieval process in that forgiveness.
Yeah, I feel like our culture is very quick to call people out, and it's like we're expecting them to give us something when actually it's like we can release it ourselves through forgiving.
I mean, I guess our egos have all kinds of ways of deflecting the inner work that we must do for ourselves, It's just like, just kind of like, what I realize, what I've noticed is that like forgiveness is like a like for some people it might be like one specific event, right? But I feel that I kind of just in my life I've come across people who just cannot forgive. It's a pattern. It's not like oh my god. Of course, there are situations where it's like, oh my god, that was terrible, and that's going to take a lot of work to process and to understand and to forgive. Whereas I've felt it like where I've just had people say, nope, I can't, I just will not even, and then again the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and it's a pattern. It's a spirit. In the same way that we cultivate love, we can cultivate like vengeance, you know. So it ultimately comes down to that choice, like to the ego kind of trapping us in this idea that we are really truly where we're truly identified with the sense of wrong that we feel has been like directed towards us, that we've you know, and we're that we cannot let go of it because it just, I guess that's how the ego works in that sense.
Yeah, so I feel like also it's like being helpless in that way, like somebody wronged us, but then actually being able to take that power back.
It's very empowering. It's like it's like you know, it's the greatest gift that we can give ourselves. It really is. But and what you were saying earlier about it being like a weak thing, it's one of the strongest things you can do. It's, you know, you sit in your warrior self to do this kind of work, and then with that comes like call upon your inner warrior, sit with them, invite them into your life. Also call upon your inner healer, call upon your inner child, and it's very hard to feel powerless when you carry these things with you. Connect to the fire. Where I was saying that rage does have places where you can offer that rage. The fire is the energy of the fire is as you know, the most ancient energy, and embody those things that the fire gives. And with that, do your alchemy. With that, you know, connect to the animal spirits, the spirit of the jaguar that will just absorb all the negativity and transmute it and stay solid in its center with love, you know.
Like you said, it's important for us to find techniques and ways to be able to transform the energy and to invite that clarity and that wisdom into our life, so that we're able to when these aspects of hate and anger come in, we're able to sit, we're able to meditate, and we're able to remove it, you know. And it comes from many ways you can meditate. A good one for me is to pray. You know what I'm saying? When you feel something, sit down and pray before you speak to the person, because you're able to draw the clarity on the situation. You're able to see that maybe it's not all the person. Maybe sometimes it's aspects of you, and that interacts with the person, and it creates this kind of confusion between people. So always take time to pray, to meditate. If you connect with nature, go out in nature, connect to the trees, connect to the elements, the wind, the water, have a cold shower, connect to the element of water, like Lama said, like the fire. The water has the same aspect as well. You know what I'm saying? It cleanses us, and it leaves our mind, body and spirits in a clean way. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's difficult when we feel that them emotions come in, but try not to be so consumed and emotionally attached to the situation. Try to remove yourself out of it. Try to sit in your heart and just pray and meditate and try to arrive at the wisdom and clarity you need to move forward in a good way with that person or the situation that you're involved in. You know? And for me, a big way to transform energy is to sing. You know, sometimes you can you can be there and just, you know, you can feel that energy come in and just sing a song and just connect to your heart space, connect to a good place in your mind, and then talk to that person. You know, and That's what it was coming to.
Okay.
Yeah. On that note, like we all like sing our songs individually and stuff like that, but we've come together to kind of share our voice and share our strength and our light through songs. So yeah, we're gonna do a little journey with songs.
And I just say as well, with singing and with song, I'm not a singer. I've never sung my whole life because of the conditioning that I had with what a good singing voice was. Yeah. So I wouldn't sing, I wouldn't share my voice, I wouldn't even singing with myself in the shower. I would get embarrassed because I'm not a singer. And through my shamanic journey and the medicine journey, where singing is such an important component of it, and when you feel how it moves and shifts and transforms energy in ceremony, really starts to understand the importance of singing. And sometimes when you can almost be in a meditation when you sing, and there are times when I sing and I don't even feel that what I'm hearing is me. There's something else that's coming through. There's some kind of cleansing. There's something really magical happening. So yeah, everyone can sing. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Everyone is a singer. Everyone's voice is just as important as everyone else's. Whether you're Whitney Houston or Annie, who's never sung for her whole life, everyone's voice is important to help us to build and lift up energy and to bring that light into our being.
I just add to that, like, of course, I could 100% resonate with that because, you know, like, exactly like you say, like I couldn't even sing in the car to myself, and I'm just, there's no one else in the car, just me. Yeah. But I guess with me it came through in a very similar way, and where it was okay, like I've got to sing this song, but I'm not recognizing that I'm not singing it for anyone else or for you know how great my voice or might sound or not, but as an offering, you know, as an offering, as a way to lift a prayer up, and that really is the power of sound, because our bodies, like, we're like sonic sonar bodies, so like we vibrate on that frequency, and we can heal a lot through connecting to it and retuning our own bodies to their original frequency.
Looking at you.
Looking at you.
You're gonna do the dolphin song. I'll do explanation. I'll do half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, the first song that we're gonna start with is a Nikoro from our teacher Kurokindi, and it's a song about the dolphin energy, about the element of water, and about how that energy can rise from the deep sea and kind of come through the Amazon jungle and in and above humanity to bless all of humanity with that element of water and that element of the dolphins. So thank you for tuning in. Sumak suma sumacho boyugru nashamusha kaima chai marikuri shashayari tairi ri 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 tairi ri 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 Sumak suma sumacho Lama patamatami Hüotuja chayuyari shashamuhu tairi ri 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 tairi ri 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 ri
Sumatsu Matsumachu Amazonia Bukyuse Mayukata Mipukuri Shashamu Tairi Sumatsu Talo mundo mishamu Talo mundo tatsemae kan shamishayari Taidi di 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 Taidi di 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 Sumatsu Ugyuglu na shamusha Kaima chai marikuri shashayari Taidi di 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 Taidi di 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 Thank you, Kirkindi. It's my teacher. You want me to do one next? Or do you want to go next, sister? If you're ready.
I want to change up the vibe a little bit, so
I'm going to bring your vibe in.
And then I can come out and do something else.
I haven't got my rattle, and I haven't rattled in ages. You can, if you want to rattle for me, sister.
Oh, slow. Well, you could do that.
You correct.
I'm going to keep to now.
Okay. Is this okay?
Yeah. Iana yo na hena wene. 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 Iana yo na hoena hene owe. Iana yo na hena wene. 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 Iana yo na hoena hene owe. Iana yo na hena wene. 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 Iana yo na hoena hene owe. Iana yo na hena wene. 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 Iana yo na hoena hene owe. You. Thanks, sister.
Thank you. I'm enjoying this.
You're so good with the
Start grip.
Abuelito, abuelita, escucha mi palabra, mi cariño, mi amor. Oh, Yana, Yana, wana, oh, Yana, Yana, wana, hey, Yana, hey, hey, oh, abuelito, abuelita, escucha mi palabra, mi cariño, mi amor. Oh, Yana, Yana, wana, oh, Yana, Yana, wana, hey, Yana, hey, hey, oh, Yana wana ho yana, yana wana ho yana, oh yana, yana wana ho yana, yana wana hey yana, hey ne yo, yana wana ho yana, yana wana ho yana, oh yana, yana wana ho yana, yana wana hey yana, hey ne yo.
I was like, wait, are we
We
going
do.
for a second? Sorry, that was a bit of hesitation.
Oh, yeah, kind of wrapping it up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We kind of changed it up around a little bit.
Yeah.
We kind of covered that before we
Yeah.
started the songs. We did speak about
Yeah.
that earlier, but we didn't
Yeah.
communicate. We sat down and I was like...
I think it came in though in a good way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
About the power and strength. But yeah, I think with the power and strength aspect of forgiveness is about how we can move forward with a good mind, body, and spirit, and just be strong. You know, the times ahead are going to need us to be strong, to be clear, and to be with love in our hearts. So the way that we move forward with power and strength is to have love, compassion, forgiveness, and acceptance for all that comes in our paths. You know, and just keep walking in the hands of God, with the light, and connect to your heart space.
Just thank you everyone for listening to us today. It's really special to sit with Chris and Lama. So thank you, Jess, for creating this space. Tunapu kai pachai jau pachaitia. Kamba shuti alanishka kachu. Yukanchi shungu kamba shungu achu. Yukanchi samai kamba samai achu. Yukanchi shimi kamba shimi achu. Ashka pagaracho kai punjiraipu. Ashka pagaracho pachamama. Ashka pagaracho indiaya. Ashka pagaracho yakumama. Ashka pagaracho waida. Thank you, everyone, for creating this space today, for dedicating your time and your attention to this discussion of forgiveness. Thank you to the Divine for blessing this space, for guiding us through this discussion today. I pray that we all can carry the teachings of forgiveness in our hearts, and we can offer this forgiveness to ourselves and to the world around us at large. And I pray through that forgiveness that our strength can grow for ourselves, for our lives, for the planet, and for the future generations that are to come.
Yay! I'm gonna jump on
Space.
I'm
squeezing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was so nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope everyone got a lot of juice from that. Yeah. Lots of very nice things were shared, and I really enjoyed the music as well. I feel like that's something that we don't really do these days, you know? But it's so unifying, like hearing you all singing together as well. So nice. So yeah, donations are welcome. I think the link is in the chat box. And sorry, yeah.
Can I add something for donations?
Yeah. Yes.
Just
do.
the part about the 25%
Yeah.
that you'll be donating to the Hüotuja tribe in Venezuela. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've spent quite a bit of time with. Oh, sorry. Is that better? With the Pero tribe in Venezuela. The indigenous name is the Hüotuja people, and they are kind of like a lot of the tribes that are living remotely and who do rely on being able to move through the cities to share their wares and to bring their healing to the world. They have suffered as a result of the pandemic, and they are going through a bit of a difficult time. So really grateful for the contributions that you guys can make, and yeah, that they'll really go a long way in Venezuela.
Thank you, and yeah, if you'd like to subscribe to our channel as well. So yeah, just take a few moments to close this out. Just let everything land in our bodies. We absorb this journey. Through forgiving, we can let go of the things that weigh us down. Really step. Freeing ourselves, open ourselves up for love, sharing deep breaths. Giving thanks that we can be here. We're all be a part of this journey.